Hey guys, I'm Ryan.
I'm Adam.
And this is Two Neighbors. So Adam, what are we watching today?
All right, Ryan, we're trying something a little different. We're going back to our little history lesson, and this was requested by Megan Langley.
Thank you, Megan.
Megan, thank you very much for your request. Megan used hashtag #myrequest down below in the comment section with the URL link, and that's why we're doing this video. And she sent us, I'm assuming she, 10 yeah, well, Megan, I've seen male Megans.
Have you?
Yeah.
All right, well.
Anyways,
yeah.
10 greatest warriors in history. So, do you know of any great warriors of history? Because I sure don't.
Yeah, I'm sure Genghis Khan would make the list. And,
sure.
I'm
not a history buff.
Yeah. I don't know, now I'm drawing a blank.
Well, I guess we're gonna get educated today. So guys, thank you for joining us. Before we begin, hit the subscribe button if you are new to the channel, and don't forget to turn on that little bell for notifications. We post content every single day. And don't forget to check out okanswag.com, punch in Two Neighbors in the coupon code at checkout, and you'll receive 20% off, plus free shipping, and pay no tax on some sweet Canadian swag as you see down below. Shipping now available in USA and Canada.
It'd be cool if the greatest warrior of all time, and they go to like Steph Curry. They're like, hey, you got us there, right? So, all right, without further ado, guys, the 10 greatest warriors of all time.
We can totally be off.
I know, watch us play basketball.
10 greatest warriors.
No, not basketball.
It's got like that history look, or that
Pierre
medieval look.
Never heard of him.
Never heard.
His story begins in 1515, when mercenaries hired by the House of Habsburg, the royal family that ran Austria, rode into town and started pillaging. Rather than thinking, hey, let's not mess with a giant who can bend pennies, the mercenaries killed his children, raped and murdered his wife, and burnt his local church down. This set Pierre off on a lifelong mission of revenge. Not satisfied with just tracking down and killing all 4,000 of the mercenaries responsible, Pierre declared war on the Habsburgs who, again, ran the whole of Austria. Gathering a band of rebels, Pierre spent 4 years as a pirate attacking Austrian ships. In that time, he sunk as many as 138 boats. On land, his forces successfully plundered 2 castles, burnt down an entire village, and butchered an army of 300 enemy soldiers. Unfortunately, even a muscle-bound pirate king can't defeat an entire nation, and Pierre eventually retired in 1520.
Retired!
For mass murder.
Number 9. Miyamoto Musashi.
I feel like some of these could be movies.
If your uncle starts training you in sword fighting from the age of 7, you know you're either going to become an expert swordsman or spend the rest of your childhood figuring out how to build Lego sets with your feet. Miyamoto Musashi was the former, becoming arguably 16th century China's most famous warrior. His first duel was at the age of 13, when he defeated Arima Kihei in the most skillful, elegant way possible, stabbing him in the head and beating him to death with his bare hands. At the age of 16, Miyamoto left his home and started travelling around the towns of ancient China, challenging locals to duels. He spent decades slashing foes to pieces, living out his life as a one-man roaming Tekken game. After a while, Miyamoto grew so bored of easily carving up his foes that he started fighting with a wooden sword, and still, no one could beat him. Honestly, this guy could have fought all his duels with a pool noodle and still come out on top. Having won 60 duels and never having lost one, a jaded Miyamoto retired at the age of 55 to write philosophy.
Okay.
Number 8. Leonidas.
Of course.
The ancient Spartans were balls out mental. They threw disabled babies off a mountain, hunted their own slaves, and subjected all male citizens to military training from the age of 7. Yet, even for a Spartan, King Leonidas stands out as especially badass. When a Persian army tore through Greece in 480 BC, Leonidas took 300 Spartan soldiers to hold them off at the narrow pass of Thermopylae. Considering they're up against 70,000 to 2 million Persians, that's pretty ballsy. When warned that the Persians had enough archers that their arrows would block out the sun, Leonidas replied in true action movie style, "Then we'll fight in the shade." The Persians attacked them for 2 days straight, but Leonidas and the Spartans held the line, using their spears and short swords to kill 10,000 enemy soldiers. Unfortunately, a Greek traitor called Ephialtes told the Persians there was another path they could take, and the Persians surrounded the Spartans. At this point, most people with a basic understanding of arithmetic would probably surrender, but Leonidas stood his ground, and the Spartans fought until each and every one of them was dead. Many of them broke their weapons in the fight and started punching and biting the Persian soldiers. Their heroic last stand bought the rest of Greece time to rally a larger army and defeat the Persians. Number 7. Xiaohu. Growing up in the 3rd century AD, Xiaohu was always what you'd call a problem child. As in, he was a child who beat up anyone he had a problem with. When he was 13, he killed a man who insulted his favourite teacher. What is it with ancient China and these murderous 13-year-olds. As an adult, Xiaohu joined the Han army, less out of a sense of loyalty to his homeland than out of a desire to kill strangers. As the bodies piled, he quickly rose through the ranks to become a major, then a colonel, then a general. But the incident that made Xiaohu a legend happened during the Battle of Yan province in 194 AD. While cleaving his way through an army of 10,000 men, Xiaohu was hit in the left eye with an arrow. Considering an arrow to the knee is close enough to make most people stop adventuring, what happened next is incredible. Xiaohu wrenched the arrow out of his socket with the eyeball still attached. Then, deciding it would be an insult to his family to simply throw it away, Xiaohu ate the eyeball in front of the stunned archer before stabbing him. The Han would go on to win the battle and war, presumably because
We're
no
only
one
on
wants
number
to fight the
7.
guy who
Yeah.
didn't flinch at headhunting an arrow.
Wow.
Number 6. Harold Fairhead. We've all done things we wouldn't normally do to try and get a sweetheart's attention. But while you may think that the Italian meal you cooked or that terrible poem you wrote were ambitious, they don't really compare with creating an entire country for someone. In the 9th century, Norway wasn't one unified nation, but a collection of regional kingdoms. Harold Fairhead was the king of the tiny kingdom of Vestfold, and when he proposed to the Princess of Hordaland, she told him she couldn't be with a man who had such a small kingdom. Rather than taking the hint and going home to eat Ben and Jerry's in his underwear, Harold swore he'd conquer all the kingdoms of the land. He even promised not to cut or comb his famous golden locks until he had. Over the next decades, Harold slaughtered his way through Scandinavia, knocking down army after army as he spread his empire. In one battle, 3 kings teamed up their armies against Fairhead's men, but Harold simply cut a path through the soldiers, reaching the 3 kings and burying an axe into each of them. After killing scores of enemy kings, Harold stood alone as the leader of a unified Norway in 872 AD.
And she said no.
And yes,
No.
he got the girl.
Oh, okay.
Number 5. Sopiad. Marauding 7-foot Dutchmen and psychopathic eyeball munchers may be pretty terrifying to meet on the battlefield, but at least you'd see them coming. Sopiad, however, could shoot you with enough toxic material to kill Charlie Sheen without you ever spotting him. A headhunter from 19th century Kauai in Borneo, Sopiad was fed up of his village constantly being pillaged by other stronger tribes. So one day he wandered out into the jungle with a 2-meter blowpipe and a handful of poisoned darts, sneaking from village to village and sniping the leader of each enemy clan. After each kill, Sopiad hacked off his victim's head with a machete and added it to a stash of skulls he was hoarding, which is about 1,000,000 times cooler than a stamp collection. He returned with a stunning 42 heads, and the other villagers got the message to never mess with Kauai again. Unfortunately, killing an entire softball league of people went to Sopiad's head, and he became something of a dictator in his village. In the end, the villagers gathered together at night and murdered him, but then they renamed the village after him, so...
We feel bad, so we're just going to name something
Aaron
after
Burr.
you. Aaron Burr.
Generally speaking, vice presidents don't kill people. But then, generally speaking, vice presidents aren't Aaron freaking Burr. When the US War of Independence broke out in 1775, the 19-year-old Burr quit his gig as a lawyer and joined the American Revolution. Sent up to fight in Quebec, he made a name for himself after personally shooting his way through 20 or so enemy soldiers to try and rescue his injured commanding officer. After that, Burr served in New York, where he helped defeat a British invasion of the city and fought alongside George Washington in the Battle of Monmouth. On another occasion in Yale, Burr and a handful of local college students managed to fend off 2,000 professional British soldiers. After the war ended, Burr entered politics and wound up becoming Thomas Jefferson's vice president. You'd think that an office job would put an end to Burr's killing, but no. After getting in a tiff with Alexander Hamilton, Burr challenged him to an illegal duel and shot him to death. The state of New York put out an arrest warrant for Burr, but he simply ignored it and went back to being VP. To this day, Burr is the only vice president to kill someone while in office.
That we know of.
Yeah.
Number 3. Fiamma.
Fiamma.
Being a Roman gladiator was not a great life. You were a slave forced to fight for people's entertainment and were lucky to survive more than a couple of battles. Unsurprisingly, all gladiators dreamed of winning enough battles to be given their freedom. All except a crazy Syrian gladiator known only by a stage name Fiamma, which means the flame. Fiamma wasn't interested in any of those things like retirement or living past 30. He had one obsession and one obsession alone.
Michael
being
Jackson.
famous. Basically, he was Kim Kardashian with a sword and a death wish. Armed only with a sword and a shield, Fiamma usually faced off against Retiari's gladiators, dodging their tridents and nets before gutting them. Over the course of his career, Fiamma was offered his freedom on no less than 4 occasions. Each time he rejected it and continued his life of hacking people to pieces.
I'm okay, bro.
Yeah.
I'm just
He
gonna
was
keep this
during
going.
34 battles, but after 13 years of fighting, he was eventually killed in the arena around 200 AD. Number 2. Genghis Khan.
Heard of that.
When you're the head of a horde of fearsome warriors responsible for more deaths than your average dictator, you know you've got to be in this video somewhere. Genghis Khan was the founder of the Mongol Empire, an empire which ended up covering 24 million square kilometers of land. How did Khan's empire grow so large? By wiping out anyone who stood in their way, of course. Khan's armies killed over 40 million people, which at the time was 10% of the world's population. Obviously, you don't get to be the leader of a group like that without having some serious skills. Khan was a fearless warrior and skilled archer from childhood, first testing his abilities when a gang of slave traders captured him. Despite him and his wife being enslaved for months, Khan eventually managed to escape and kill his way to freedom. Khan would become such an obsessive obliterator of enemies that he may have accidentally been the world's first environmentalist. With so many people no longer breathing, and with so many wiped out civilizations returning to uninhabited woodland, Khan is credited with removing 700 million tons of carbon dioxide. Number 1. Galvarino. If you ever wanted a version of Edward Scissorhands who was a relentless murderer, look no further than the story of Galvarino. A 15th century warrior from the Mapuche tribe in Chile, Galvarino led 150 men in a surprise attack against the expanding Spanish Empire. As tends to happen when you have swords and your enemy have guns, the warriors were roundly defeated and Galvarino was captured. The Spanish cut off his hands and sent him back to his tribe as a warning. Not discouraged by his lack of hands, Galvarino decided to lead another attack on the Spanish. And rather than enter the battle literally unarmed, he did the craziest thing possible. Tied blades to his stumps. Yes, this guy actually made himself into Wolverine. With 3,000 warriors behind him, Galvarino led a second attack on the Spanish troops. Unfortunately, even if they're lashed to your arms, swords still don't beat guns. Though only managing to kill around 30 soldiers, Galvarino did find the Spanish force's second in command and cut him into ribbons. He was recaptured and the Spanish, impressed by his DIY approach to prosthetics, offered to spare him. Our favourite machete-handed loon stared them in the eye and told them that if they released him, he'd rip them apart with his teeth. The Spanish fed him to their dogs. The 10 greatest warriors of all time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm glad we live in a more civilized period.
Yeah, well, differently.
Differently.
It's done with a pen now,
Yeah.
but, you know.
Well, you know what I mean.
Rather than like blades on your hands.
Yeah, that's messed up. But like that guy that like took the arrow out and with his eye and ate it and made like, oh.
And then stabbed the guy to death.
The guy's just like.
Yeah, I mean, like that would throw you off your game, I would think.
Oh man, but
advancing. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, cool. So Megan, thank you very much for the suggestion. I really appreciate that. If you guys want us to watch your video, do what Megan did. Hashtag my request down below along with the exact URL to the YouTube video you want us to check out, and we will check it out.
Adam? And don't forget to check out okanswag.com, punch in 2 neighbors in the coupon code at checkout, and you'll receive some sweet Canadian swag for 20% off plus free shipping and pay no tax. Now shipping to Canada and the USA. Free shipping. Get them while it's hot. Well, Brian, what else should they do?
Like, share, and subscribe, guys. If you haven't done so, hit that subscribe button, turn on that bell for notifications. We post new content every single day.
That's it for our show today, guys. We'll see you later.
Later, guys.